Hello, my name is Desiree, and I am coming online to do an informational video about my hike on the Appalachian Trail in 2022. I promised myself that I would pay it forward. So many people have helped me along the way that I really wanted to encourage others to get on a trail. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the Appalachian Trail, but while I was hiking it for 6 months, 3 weeks in 2022, I kept thinking to myself, I wish my sister was out here. I wish she could experience this. But my sister's gone through renal failure, and she has some challenges on that account. And then friends and family, but everyone has jobs and children, and I'm in my mid-40s, so that's right at the peak of all of those commitments. And I've been very blessed to be able to design a life where that wasn't necessarily my path. So that gave me the chance to be able to go out and hike the Appalachian Trail in 2022. And so this short video is going to be informational on some questions that I've had people ask me. So I'm going to answer them, and hopefully this will get those thoughts rolling around in your head where you're like, I should get out on trail. So here we go. It's not as intimidating as you think, because if I can do it, anyone can. So one of the questions I often got asked very early on, and even now after hiking it, is, did you hike the Appalachian Trail alone? And I say, yes, I did. So again, for those preceding reasons, all of my friends and family, they had other commitments. They weren't coming with me. And if I waited for them to become available, it was never going to happen. I don't have a lot of friends scattered throughout the world that have similar interests like I do. So this was really a one-off. This is something where I had to go out there on the trail and do it, or it was never going to happen if I waited for somebody to come with me. So yes, I did hike it alone. I think one of the most frustrating things about this question, though, is that I got this question a lot while I was actually out on trail by men asking me, are you hiking alone? What am I supposed to say to that? Yes, I am. I am hiking alone. Would you like to do harm to me, sir? It was like, so I don't think men realized that, every woman out there is going to lie to you if you ask them that question. They're going to look you in the eye and go, yeah, I've got friends in front of me, and I've got friends that are expecting me up there, and I've got some friends following me up behind me. We're all meeting up. It's a complete lie. And I find that annoying because I don't really like lying, but I had to look these strange men in the face when they asked me, are you hiking alone? And I would have to say, yes. No. See, I told you I'm a bad liar. Okay, let me try that again. Are you hiking alone? And I would have to look them in the eye and go, yeah, I'm not hiking alone. See, I can't even do it. I just did it again. I'm not hiking alone. I have friends in front of me that are waiting for me, and I have friends behind me that are coming up behind me. So I'd have to lie to those men, because what are you supposed to do? Yes, I am. I am alone. I'm all alone in this wilderness. So it's a really, really bad question to ask anyone out on trail, male or female, or any other type of gender that you identify with. All right. So with that, yes, I did hike alone, and I was very happy with that. And it just entirely depends on your goals. If you are a social creature and you're ready to meet a whole bunch of people, the Appalachian Trail is great for that. You're going to meet so many people that want to chit-chat with you and hang out with you and become part of a trail family or a tramily with you, this family that moves through the trail together. But hiking alone is great for somebody who wants peace of mind and wants to listen to themselves and make their own plans and their own decisions and not have to accommodate anyone else's. So, you got to do you when you're out on trail, because at the end of the day, what's going to make you happy? What's going to make you content? This is a very hard, arduous journey. What do you want? Because if you're out there sweating it and breaking into a sweat and heaving and hoeing and going up those mountains, hoeing, however you say it, going up those mountains, it's got to be worth it, right? So what do you want? And make that happen. And if it's hiking alone, do it. Did I bring a gun? No. They're heavy. End of story. Other than that, I'd probably more likely shoot my own foot than somebody else. And if that's not a good enough excuse, then just know that there are parts of the Appalachian Trail where you're actually not allowed to have a gun or it's required that you have a permit for that particular state. So if you do have a gun hiking with you the whole entire Appalachian Trail, you have to go through all of those tasks to be able to have a permit in each individual state, and sometimes that's just not possible. So no, I did not have a gun. What is the planning like? It's not as hard as you think. It really isn't as hard as you think. Putting together all the items going into the trip, you realize that you bought so much more stuff than you're actually going to need. And so weeding through all of that can be something you can do before you put your foot boot on trail, or it can be something you figure out in those first 15, 20, 30 miles before you get to your first resupply. And you're just offloading. And you see the hiker boxes and those first couple of hostels that you're going to stop off on, and they're just overflowing with stuff. And people figure it out pretty soon. You can save yourself a little bit of pain those first 15, 20, 30 miles by just offloading all of that stuff before you even bring it out on trail. And you can do that by practicing hikes with your pack ahead of time, doing a couple out and backs or stayovers, like hike out, stay over for the night, hike on back, and figure out what you do and do not need. I figured out, I bought a whole bunch of stuff ahead of time, more than I ever thought I'd need. And then I just got rid of it before I ever got on trail. And really, I looked at a scale, and if it was too heavy, things had to go. And if some item was really needed and I felt like it was too heavy, I changed it out for a lighter item. So I was constantly buying stuff and trying to get a lower weight for something, and a lower weight for it, and a lower weight for it. I concentrated on the big three at first, like everyone should: your backpack, your sleeping mat, and your sleeping bag. And then from there, I just added. Planning on trail is actually far more simpler than you think it is as well. You're not hiking this whole entire 2,200 mile trail all in one go. So how do you eat an elephant? This is the phrase that I thought of all through the trail: one bite at a time. So how do you hike the Appalachian Trail? One section at a time. Maybe it's a 3-day section. Maybe it's a 4-day section. Maybe it's a 5-day section. Maybe you do 7-mile or 7-day sections, and that's great. Whatever that is, whatever that section is, essentially what you're doing is you're planning your food, you're planning your water stops, you're planning where you're going to stay for the night, and then you have to just plan out who's going to pick you up, take you to your next resupply option, and maybe stay over the night. So where am I staying at a hostel? Where am I staying at a hotel? And who's going to drive me to and from? And that's all you're going to have to plan. And then once you get to that spot where you're resupplying that hostel, that hotel in town, then you're planning out your next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-day hike, and planning enough food for it, enough of the equipment, and making sure your equipment is going to be good for that section, and then where you're going to stop, and then how you're going to get to that next location. Because I wasn't sure how fast I was going to be able to hike over particular mountains or how hard it was going to be, I was never really quite sure on my time of arrival for being picked up or shuttled into where I was going to be staying the night. So what I did is I usually waited until I got on top of a mountain while I was hiking, and I would call like the day before or that morning, and I'd be like, I need a shuttle. It's probably going to be at 4 o'clock this afternoon. I would like to go into such and such place. And then they would, the shuttle driver would be like, yes, I'm available. I'll pick you up at this gap around this time. And I'd be like, perfect. And they usually did something like, text me at this location, at this mountain, when you reach this mountaintop where everyone has cell reception, and I'll know, approximately when it's going to take, how long it's going to take you to get down to the gap or the pickup site. And then the other thing I did while I was on top of the mountain was just make that phone call or text. I usually texted because it was easier and easier to reference and go back to on what hostel I was going to stay at. And usually the hostel would be like, are you staying for one night? And I'd be like, nope, I'm going to take a 0. And they'd be like, okay, so 2 nights. And then hostels do their own shuttling usually for the most part as well. So then you were just working with them anyway for the shuttle. So usually I only had to worry about shuttles when I was just going into town to get food or going to a hotel. All right. So again, you're just taking it section by section, and then you just repeat. Do your section, repeat. Do your section, repeat. there are some tools out there that help you plan, and if you want, I can tell you more about those in another video. What is the food like? Okay, so I don't cook a lot at home. I'm not a very good cook, so I didn't know why I thought I could cook food out on a trail. So a lot of people out there are going to be really good at rehydrating things. I was not one of those people. Usually my rice was just crunchy. So what I started to do very early on, about 3 weeks in, is I got rid of my whole cook system altogether. And yes, the food was cold at first because I was hiking in February and March, but I would eat snacks pretty much throughout the day. So in the morning I would wake up and maybe I'd have a Rice Krispie treat for breakfast, along with maybe like a granola bar. And then I would go and I would eat a snack midday, and that would probably be like a candy bar or crackers and cheese or something like that. And then I would stop midday and I would have my jerky, maybe crackers and cheese, maybe some trail mix. And so I just got a whole bunch of snacks like trail mix, cheese, crackers, beef jerky, turkey jerky, and the potted meat in the little cans with buns. Or sometimes I would take like the little chicken packets, add mayo to it, and I'd eat it in like a pita bread. And that's pretty much what I ate. Now I did start to get comfortable packing things out. So what I would do is I would stop at a Subway before I left to go out on the trail and start my section. And I would grab like a foot-long sub, and I'd put bacon and cheese, no mayo, no lettuce, nothing like that. And I'd get mayo packets, and I'd pack that out. And bacon keeps for a good day, so I would eat half of that sandwich for lunch and half of that for dinner. And so when I got into town, when I rolled into town, that's where I focused more on getting my fruits and vegetables, getting some solid hot meals in my tummy. So that's what food like was for me. For the most part, food on trail is where you're taking some sort of dehydrated meal and rehydrating it. But I didn't cook that way. Typical day like. What's a typical day like? Okay, I am not the kind of person that likes to wake up to an alarm clock, so when I woke up in the morning, it was whenever I woke up. All right, so if I woke up at 6 o'clock, that's when I started my day. If I woke up at 8 o'clock, that's when I started my day. I listened to my body, and if my body was like, you need to sleep, I slept. And my body was like, we're ready to wake up and walk, I woke up and walked. I did a lot of stretching in my tents at first, so a lot of stretching in the morning, flexing out my feet, rubbing my feet, looking over my feet and making sure that I didn't have any blisters forming or like a hangnail forming or anything like that. Eating snacks once I got my food bag down from the hang. So you got bears out in the woods. So what you do is you hang your bag up in the tree so the bears can't get it. Chipmunks can get it. Squirrels can get it, but bears not so much if you do it right. And then what I would do is I would have my breakfast. I'd pack up my tent, get it all going, and start hiking, and I would walk. And usually about midday, I'd pull out my app and see what's coming up in the day. And, I like to stumble across and be surprised by things. I never like to look forward to my day and be like, oh my gosh, I've got 2 4,000-footer mountains to climb today. I like to be surprised. So I didn't really plot out my day in that regard. I would stumble into a mountain and be like, oh, okay, this is a pretty good climb. And I would climb it. And I found that a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, I've got a 4,500-footer, 2 of them back to back today. Oh, today's going to suck, blah, blah, blah. And I hated that feeling. And so I had to climb it no matter what. I mean, there was no choice except to quit, right? So why cause that stress ahead of time? So what I would find myself doing is I'd be climbing up a mountain and I'd be like, oh, well, this was a tall mountain. How tall is this mountain? 4,500 feet. Oh, that's cool. So that's how I kind of planned out my day. I didn't plan it out at all. I let the trail come to me, and all I had to do was walk it. So lunch follows next, followed by a snack, followed by more walking. It was very rare for me to take a nap during the day. It was really hard to do. Once in a while I'd lay down, find a tree to lean up against, but it was hard to take a nap in the middle of the day. So I tended not to. And then about 5 o'clock, I noticed my body would be like, oh, are we there yet? Are we there yet? And that's when I really started looking at that app going, okay, where can I tent for tonight? It's about 2 hours, which means I've got about 4 to 6 miles that I can work with. So in that 4 to 6 miles, I've got to find somewhere to tent. And maybe that's at a shelter, or maybe it's, stealth camping or something like that, which is where you're exactly what it sounds like. You're going off trail and just finding a flat spot and camping for the night, which is frowned upon in certain locations. And so that's what I did. It was difficult to put an end goal for the day. Like, I have to walk 18 miles to get to that shelter, and it caused too much stress in my life. So that was not how I had planned out my day. I let the day come to me however it would. And at about 5 o'clock, I knew I had a couple hours to get to a site. And then at about 7, right around dark, as it got darker, later in the day, you could push that time of stopping your hike for the day out. So from there, what I did is I would set up camp, and then I would do a wet wipe bath, rehydrating my dehydrated wet wipes, and change into my sleeping clothes, set up my sleeping bag, my sleeping pad, eat dinner, hang my food bag, and then I would crawl into my tent, get into my nice warm 0-degree Enlightened Equipment quilt bag, and I would listen to my stories, or I would text my family back home if I had reception. Sometimes I got lucky and I was able to call them over the phone, and then drift off to sleep and start my day all over again the next day with a lot of walking. Bathrooms, what are bathrooms like? It's tough out there. It's tough out there in the bathroom world of the AT. They're called privies, and essentially it's where everyone goes into this usually wooden structure that looks like an outhouse, and they do their business. And then you throw some pile of leaves on top of it. Some of the clubs would provide wood chips, which was nice. Some would provide toilet paper, which was very nice. Thank you so much if you were one of those clubs. Some were so well taken care of. They felt like you were just in a bathroom. The one thing I will say about myself is my system was so messed up at first, it didn't know what to do. So it was like, we're doing this, we're walking 10 miles again, really? And so it was very out of sync. Like, I did not take a lot of bathroom breaks. I did not eat a lot of food. And this was for a good solid 2 months. So March and April, I didn't have a lot of bathroom breaks. I didn't have a lot of food breaks. I was not hungry. The system was not working right. And it took a while to regulate, where it was like daily. I don't know if that's TMI, but it's nothing to freak out about. Your body does have to adjust, and so it's going to go out through that freak out period. So at first, I didn't really use a lot of privies. And then later, when I realized business calls, if I had to use a privy, I would, but usually business called like out in the middle of the woods with no privies around. So that's where you go 80 yards out into the woods, 200 feet out into the woods, and you do your business, and then you come back on trail and keep on hiking. So I did have to pack out toilet paper, and I used actual soap that's dehydrated in those, like, they look like Listerine slips, and I highly recommend that because you want to soap up your hands. Norovirus is not killed by hand sanitizers, so you want to wash your hands if you do go out and use a privy on the Appalachian Trail. Some of them are really clean, and some of them, I'm not gonna lie, is rough. I opened up one and I just turned and walked away. So good luck with that. How in shape do you have to be for the Appalachian Trail? Okay, another big controversial one, because a lot of people are out there like, you need to work out. You need to be in the best fitness of your life. But really, what you need to do is, if you are out of shape, you need to be patient. I mean, you need to be painfully patient, and you need to know that you're not walking this trail in 6 months. Let me say this again. If you are out of shape when you hit the Appalachian Trail, you are not going to walk this trail in 6 months like somebody who's in shape. You're going to give yourself a lot more time at the beginning to walk 6 to 8 miles a day over a 12-hour period, which is literally like a half a mile every hour. You know what I mean? And you're just going to walk slowly, pull, so slowly, pull so slowly. And you're just going to go through your day like that. You're going to give yourself lots of rest, lots of patience. And the reason why is you don't want to be that hiker that I came across, the one that is completely covered head to toe in sweat, leaning up against a tree, butt on the ground, huffing and puffing like, and I'm literally, that's the guy I'm walking up to going, are you okay? Do you need help? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. You don't want to stress yourself to that extent when you're out hiking. So what you really need to do is find that really good pace that works for you. And if you're overweight, that's going to be a very slow pace. And you're going to feel a lot of pressure because people are going to walk by you and you're going to step aside and they're going to stand and look at you and go, are you okay? And you're going to think, why do I not look okay? Is something wrong? And because you're not walking at this blistering pace, they think there's something wrong because you're not matching their energy output for the trail, I think is a good way to interpret it. So you're going to start out very slow, 6-8 miles a day. And it's going to probably take you longer to get to that first resupply, but don't worry about it because you're not going to be hungry anyway. So you've packed just enough food because you've already overpacked your food. Let me just say that right off the bat. You're probably going to overpack your food at first. So here you go. You're gonna go and take your time and the trail is going to train you, and you're going to get your trail legs eventually, and you're going to start walking your 2-mile-hour trails, or maybe even get up to like a 3-mile. And I did pretty good. I actually was able to walk a 20-mile day and get on a pretty good pace. But toward the end, I started to slow down again. Some of that was purposely, like, gosh, I need to stop and take some breathers here and take in what I'm accomplishing. And the other part about that is Maine gets really, really difficult, and your miles are going to go down. And if you try to keep in that main mind frame of, oh gosh, I got to push my 15, 20-mile days like I've been doing, I think Maine can wreck you hard. So you're going to start out slow, gain up speed, and then you're going to drift into Maine and New Hampshire and Maine a little bit slower. And so with that, do you have to be in like supreme shape? No, because I started out obese on my hike and I ended obese on my hike. I started out at like 255, I ended at 220. So I only lost like 35, 40 pounds my entire hike. And, but I was able to comfortably walk long miles, even with this extra weight. So I don't think you have to be in like supreme condition, but I do think that I would hesitate to be that person that I've come across where, they were just completely covered in sweat, sitting on the ground, and they still had 4 miles to walk to end their day. Or the person who if you walked 6 miles a day and you can't stand up to put your tent up, and he was literally crawling on the ground, and I asked him if he's okay, and he couldn't put his tent up, and he couldn't blow up his mat, he couldn't blow up his device, some sort of tent inflatable thing, and he was struggling, and he wasn't able to get his water, and he wasn't able to take care of himself at the end of the day, and he was literally crawling on the ground, and he's like, I walked 6 miles today. If that happens to you, I would get off trail and I would go home and work out a little bit more and then come back to the trail. And I can hear somebody out there going, what does she know? But you're out in the middle of the wilderness. There are all these things out there that are risky, and you're taking all of these risks. And they're inherent if you're going to walk an Appalachian trail hike, right? They're inherent. A bear could come across you at any moment, a bobcat, a coyote, another human being that doesn't have the best of intentions. It's rare, but maybe it happens, and it has happened on the trail before. And so if you are literally exerting yourself to the point where you can't take care of yourself, can't get yourself water, food, put up your tent, all of that, then, you want to have enough physical capability to be able to do that. And I saw some people very early on the trail that they couldn't hike through their day and still be able to take care of themselves at night. And that is worrisome. That's where you're going to get into danger. So, if you're overweight, don't let people talk you out of it. And there are people out there that will try to talk you out of it. Like, oh my gosh, don't do this if you're overweight. I call that my Tom Ranger. I'll talk about that in another story if you guys ever want to hear it. But here, in short summary, again, don't let your out of shapeness talk you out of doing the trail. The trail's gonna get you up to speed as long as you're patient and do slow, low miles at first. And then a really good trick somebody told me very early on, but I was already doing it, is you expend about 60 to 80% of your energy out on the trail for the day, and then keep that 20 to 40% for what you need to at night to get the water, to put up your tent, to get your sleeping bag all situated. If you are walking into your tent site at night and you're absolutely exhausted, you've still got so much work to do. So walk into that tent site feeling good, feeling that you have enough energy to kind of get that done. So hopefully that's helpful. So with that, I think I've answered my first round of questions. I think I've made it through my first video. So thank you so much for coming along on this wild toad ride with me. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment. Also, Des, what's coming up next? I know that's probably a question that you're asking. I'm going to be climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in January 2024. I'm actually putting a group of people together. This can help save money for my group and get some adventurous like souls together for a fun adventurous trip. So looking forward to that. So if you have any questions or would like to be part of that adventure expedition, it's going to be in January 2024, and it's hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, and there will be a safari included in that as well. I'll be doing all the planning because that's what I am. I'm a tour provider when I'm not hiking trails. So reach out to me if you're interested in that. If you have any further questions about the Appalachian Trail or a video that you want to see, I'd be happy to speak further on this as well. And until then, thank you for tuning in and enjoy your day.